Hi, I'm Molly of Maison de Molly, and today I'm here with Jessica.
Hey, I'm Jessica Hickman, Fresch, and I'm fourth generation with my family business, Allegheny Mountain Hardwood Flooring.
Okay, how do we look?
Perfect.
Okay. So Allegheny Mountain Hardwood Flooring transformed our entire living room. And so when my husband and I moved into this house, it was all carpet, which is hard to imagine. Like everything was carpet. Thank you to the 70s. And we ripped it all out. We knew something had to be done and we wanted natural wood. And so we did go back and forth between engineered, LVT, real wood, and ultimately we wanted to invest in the house and potentially get that back when someday we sell. So we went with a red oak, which originally was not what I thought. So I'm going to let Jessica tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about white oak, and that's kind of the hot look right now. Everyone likes white oak. That's what you see in the magazines. Oh, I want white oak. Red oak, a lot of people think of the plain sawn commodity, that 2 1/4 plain sawn with a really busy grain pattern. And when people think red oak, they think that bright red.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like cherry.
Right, yeah, and so it's like, nope, no red oak. But then, what's cool is, all our wood comes from Western Pennsylvania, and this northern Appalachian Allegheny Plateau area that we live in has some of the best hardwoods in the country. And so that's why our red oak looks very different than red oak from Alabama or Ohio even.
Which is crazy that's how it works.
Yep, it's all about the soil, and there's a lot of different factors to it, but we have some really beautiful red oak. And then the other thing that we do special is this rift and quarter sawn cut. So that's going to look different than that commodity red oak that you're used to seeing all the builder grade stuff. And and the other big thing that I think that was helped you guys out was the price difference, right?
Yeah, we had a budget, unlike some people, and we really wanted to be cost effective, but also get a really great quality. So that's why I knew I had to call Jessica.
Yeah. So, we talked about it. We can do the white oak. We do beautiful white oak, museums and stuff around the country. But the white oak cost is continuing to go up because that's what you need for whiskey and wine barrels. And I love whiskey and I love wine. And you can't use red oak in those barrels because it won't hold the liquid. So you need that white oak for it. And the guys making the stave barrels pay a lot for those white oak logs. And there's not as much white oak growing as there is red oak either. So the price of the white oak just keeps going up. So that's where the big price difference comes from. So I always like to present the red oak as an alternative just because everything's so expensive.
I'm thankful you did.
Yeah. And it can be a beautiful floor too. So.
Yeah. Well, it's held up really well. And I remember I had our installer, shout out to Ron Duran, he put down some stain samples because I didn't think I wanted like authentic red oak. I was afraid it was going to look too red. It was going to be too pink. And he put down some stains that had a little bit of a white tint because I thought I could kind of mimic that white oak feel. And when I saw the sample swatches, I just fell in love with our floor as it was. Outside of that little square, I saw everything else installed throughout the whole house, and I was like, I can't touch this. Like, it would be wrong to touch this for this house specifically. So I love this look. I love that we were able to find something that fit into our budget, that Jessica was able to work with us and figure out like what species, what type, what lengths. So that's a whole other conversation. But we're very happy with how we've actually lived on these floors. We're not worried about them. We have a dog. And they're amazing floors.
The rift and quarter sawn floors, it's the way the log's cut. We actually cut the log into quarters, and then it works its way out. So you get a different look. You get this vertical grain. And like I mentioned on your table, but if you look at the end grain on the bottom, see that's that cathedral growth ring. It's busier and stuff, but the top of it, it's got that vertical grain. And we used to do a lot of this, and we would send this quartered figure that has the like tiger stripes. We used to sell the lumber for that to like Stickley Furniture in that like real missionary style. And your antique furniture, like your old 1900s had that. And then the rift sawn, which would be more of just the straight vertical grain without those stripes, that is the rift sawn, and that we used to sell to the Japanese furniture market because they like that real polite, straight grain, very clean. So it fits this house. So doing the combo kind of has a nice balance with it, and it's really popular in floors. You have a lot of stability, dimensional stability with it. So you can do this over radiant heat. If you ever wanted or worked with a client doing radiant heat, you can do this as a solid over radiant heat still, which is really cool.
So tell me a little bit more about the dimensional stability, right? Like if someone's watching this and they're like, what is that?
The wood moves and expands and contracts depending on the direction of the growth rings. And if you look at the end of one of these boards, the annual growth rings are perpendicular, so your movement's in the thickness as opposed to the width. So we could do this, we did this as a 10-inch wide locally in Pittsburgh here, 10-inch wide rift and quartered red oak, solid. So, we can do engineered as well, but we can do the solid, and actually from us, the solid's gonna be less expensive, especially in the red oak.
So it was also important for Tyler and I to source locally and support local. And we wanted kind of a small family business, which is perfect for you guys. So tell me a little bit about how you fit into the family lineage. And
so like I said, I'm fourth generation. My great-grandfather started the sawmill during the Depression. He had a team of horses. They were kind of farmers. Him and my great-grandma lived in the woods with horses and just cut, railroad ties and beams for mine beams.
Wow.
So that's how they got started. And then my grandfather was really one that built it up. He's the one that started buying property and was really into the timber management. So his big thing was treating the forest like a garden. You're growing more trees than you're cutting. You're pulling out the weeds when it's ready to be harvested, but you're managing for the holistic, the benefits of the whole forest. So that was my grandfather. My dad came in. In the 80s, he started the dry kilns. In 2000, we started making hardwood flooring. And I never thought I would work for the family business at all. It was a guy's industry, and I studied international business, couldn't wait to leave. And I did, and then I came back. We survived the housing recession in the 2000s, and we found our niche with the rift and quarter saw, and it was a higher end. We wanted to make a product that didn't compete with Home Depot.
It doesn't.
Yep. And we've got the FSC certification for anybody like lead projects in museums and things like that. We don't, we've noticed with homeowners, people don't tend to spend more a lot of times for that FSC. We did it more for the timber management side, but it's kind of that icing on the cake, right? It's like, oh, I like the look of it. Oh, the price is good. Oh, and it's environmentally friendly. Awesome. That's even better.
Yeah. So, and the sawmill where we're going to go is an hour from Pittsburgh.
Yes.
So it's local. You're sourcing locally.
Super local.
We're not shipping this across. Obviously for me, it was an hour away.
Yeah. Yep. And it's even within some of the green building, like the living building challenge and stuff, 500-mile radius is what they consider very local and for sustainability stuff. So this is actually a carbon negative. So this wood floor is storing more carbon than it took to make it. Wow. And that will stay in here for another 100+ years. And so you think
sustainable design right there.
Yeah, right. So someday we'll get tax credits for this stuff.
Local.
All right, so this whole floor is a rift and quarter sawn mix, which is typically how we sell the rift and quarter sawn. So if someone wanted 100% quartered only, you could do all quartered, which would be a board like this that has that really heavy quartered figure. The rift sawn is going to be more of this vertical grain. And overall, if you look at this floor, red oak tends to be heavier towards the rift sawn in general when you kind of look at bigger shots. These are called medullary rays. And the medullary rays in red oak are smaller than they are white oak. So your antique furniture and different things that they used to make, like paneling with all that heavy quarter sawn that you would see in the early 1900s in style, that was all done in white oak because it had this really heavy quartered figure. These boards are actually a little kind of exceptional for red oak. You don't get that figure as much. The red oak, you have more of this vertical grain. So rift sawn tends to be more popular in style right now. So it's another reason why people like to switch to the red oak, because you get a little bit cleaner, less busy grain pattern with it overall.
Another important thing to think about when you're doing hardwood floors is your finish. So I chose a kind of Bona Raw finish is what it's called, and it's a matte finish instead of a high gloss polyurethane. So it was important to me to be able to hide marks, scratches from our golden doodle, and anything else that might happen. We want to live on our floors, but I don't necessarily want my OCD going too crazy. So it was important for me to have a matte finish that hides a lot, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out and how it hides things too. So we've made it to the woods.
Yes. We've got amazing forests here in Pennsylvania, some of the best in the world. We manage the forest. We do selective harvesting, so we come in every 10 to 15 years. Kind of like a garden. You pick the trees when they're ripe and they're mature, and trees don't live forever. And you want to get harvest them whenever they're at their peak, right? When they're the best quality wood, and then that allows if you look up, the canopy that this one tree, you can see the down tree here, and then what that opens up the canopy, and that'll allow that sunlight to come down, and you can look and you can see all this. There's a ton of regeneration. So these are
the
all
growth here.
we try to we really focus on regenerating for oak is what we try to do, but we make sure we keep a diverse amount of species in the forest, because you never know what's going to come through. Like the emerald ash borer came through 10 years ago and wiped out all the ash trees, right? Okay. So you don't want to have all like a monocrop. Right. You want diverse. We've got oaks, you've got cherries, you've got hickory, you got maples, there's beech. But yeah, you've got a lot of red oak trees growing here. A lot of great white oak and red oak trees growing beside each other. So this is a white oak. It's got the rounded lobes here, and then you can see the red oak's got the pointy leaves.
So growing up, you always kind of hear that the loggers are the bad guys, right? And, how do we protect the forest, and how do you, as a sustainable practice, then, harvest the trees in a way that is sustainable for regrowth?
Yeah, so definitely loggers have, throughout history, we've learned, right? So there's loggers that have came through, they wiped everything out, they just kept moving west. So we've learned that we can't do that to have sustainable forest. And most of your timber and sawmill companies are family companies like ours, right? So we're managing for future generations, and you want to make sure these forests remain as forests. So we're selective harvesting, we're growing a lot more trees than we're cutting. This property, we actually have records of how we've managed and cut over the last 30 years. And so like in 30 years, we've removed over 500,000 board feet of timber off this property. Like in the 80s, there was only about 500,000 board feet of standing timber. In 30 years, we removed 500,000 board feet of standing timber, and there's over 1 million board feet of standing timber now. Wow. So it's like if you're managing a garden and taking care of it, you can actually grow at a little bit faster rate and have a healthier forest by managing it. Yeah, there's no shortage of trees. The other thing is, this wood, the trees are sequestering carbon, right? We're removing carbon from the atmosphere, and these trees are doing an amazing job at it. The younger trees take in that carbon at a faster rate, kind of like a kid, so they're sucking in carbon faster. The older trees, your big trees, like big oak trees back here, they're storing a lot more carbon, but they're older, they're not taking in as fast, right? So if you harvest that and you make it into your wood floor, now your wood floor is going to continue to store that carbon, but it allows these younger trees to take off and grow at a faster rate, taking carbon in at a faster rate. So you're actually doing more to reduce the carbon by using real wood products and managing the forest. So it's like a win-win. And then what's the alternative if you don't use the wood floor? Like you've been thought, like using the LVT or the plastic floor that's coming from oil. That's definitely worse. That's a huge carbon footprint compared to the wood is carbon negative. So
and I don't know what I expected here either. I don't know why I expected like all the trees to be grown like in a row, and like over the years, no undergrowth, and it's like this is just the woods.
And actually, that's a really good point, because if you a well-managed forest, you want to have all different age groups, right? Because it's good for the animals for one. It's good for management as far as like the health and diseases and things that come with. So a healthy forest is one that you can't see through. So if you go to a park and you have these big, all old growth trees, and you could gallop a horse through, there's no new stuff growing. So that's not actually a healthy forest, because once those die, you need the new growth happening. So yeah, because you can't see very far through that, that's a sign that it's a healthy forest. Run over the white oak.
Which was which?
That one's the white oak. Cleaning that one up again, that's scrap. And all the scraps like that, those are chips, so they'll go to the chipper and they'll be made into paper. So there's going to be, that's all used. You see how it's cut in half? So that's like it's cut into quarters, so that'll be quarter sawn then. And that's at another saw. So it gets dropped down lower, and then another saw does the next cut where it's cut to quarters. Of each one of these logs are called camps at this point. I know they're kind of squared away. And it goes around, and then it kind of circles back around, and it just keeps running like that. We're hiring. So he's looking at what spaces bent, right? So that's what he's deciding here, which side to cut. And he marks it, and then the controller, he does
board? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So those are the boards that come out, and there's a grader, someone that's gone to school, and he can tell like what each board is. So he puts a mark on it, and then these guys down here will just sort it into piles, and then from here, it'll go and gets on like stickers where they put it in a packs, and then it air dries, so it sits outside, and then it'll go into the dry kiln, where we dry it down to like 5.
How long does it have to dry for?
Depends on, I mean, we want it to dry at about 5 to 6% moisture content. So like right now, like green, when it's green, it's about at 80%.
Okay.
So like your floor, if we were to go directly, the shortest amount of time, like directly from here, like if you put it right in the dry kiln, it would take about 2 months to dry.
Wow.
So, but typically it's longer because you want it to air dry for a while.
Okay.
So you let it air dry for a few weeks or months, and then it goes to the kiln,
Gotcha.
and then the less time in the kiln. But yeah, so by the time it comes from the tree to like an actual floor in your home, you might be easily 6 months.
Okay.
You know.
We got lucky then.
Well, we're constantly doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's something that it's not like we went out and picked a tree when you put your order in. So it's taking those bigger pieces and chips them up, and then it shoots into the machine, and then that goes to a paper factory. I just want to stand it up there. So nothing is wasted with a tree. Even from the forest, when we leave the top down in the woods, that part of the tree is left to protect the saplings that are growing up. It protects them from deer. Once we're here at the sawmill, the logs get debarked over here at the debarker. That bark is sold to landscapers, or local folks come and we'll give them, they buy a truckload of bark for their landscape. The chips, the scraps that we saw that we're cutting, that's sold to paper factories, so they're making paper out of those scraps. And then the sawdust is all used. The sawdust is used to power our dry kilns. So that's the most energy intensive part of making a floor is the dry kilns, and that's all 100% powered by our sawdust. So it's all, you know, we're not wasting any part of the tree at all. All right, come on into our showroom, come check it out.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool.
It's awesome. It's like a work of art on your floor.
Wow.
So this is an old bank building that we renovated. We had a team of installers from across the country that came and did a class here back in early 2000s. And so we had like your all-stars installers. And they put together this showroom, did the class here. And so we have a bunch of different species, different finishes. So this is a red oak live sawn here. We've got a natural grade rift and quarter sawn white oak. This is a natural grade rift and quarter sawn red oak. We've got a natural grade rift and quartered beech. Got the dark red is a Pennsylvania cherry underneath the table there. That's Pennsylvania cherry, some of the best cherry in the world. Rift only red oak with walnut basket weave. Got a natural walnut here. This is a plain sawn red oak. This is more of that commodity,
This detail is
but
stunning.
with a white stain added to it. And then Molly, this is kind of like your floor. This is the red oak. This is a rift only, so you don't get any of that quartered figure in this display. And then you got the rift and quartered white oak over here. Actually, these 3 panels are all white oak live sawn. They're just different finishes and texture to them.
Okay,
so
nice.
it's cool how you can make a floor look so different.
Got Vanna White.
Yes. Eleanor, can you find the cherry floor on this side? Where's the cherry? Good job.
Good job.
So we specialize in the rift and quarter sawn cut. So it's how the boards are cut from the log. So you saw at the sawmill how you've got the log much bigger than this for quarter sawn. You need at least a 16-inch diameter log. So you cut it into quarters, and then they'll cut and you get a board from each quarter. So the quarter sawn comes from like this part of the board. So it's going to be when your annual growth rings are perpendicular to the face. And that gives you the vertical grain going up the length of the board. And then you'll get that, the quartered figure. I kind of talked about that quarter sawn has that flecking, and the rift sawn is that straight grain. That rift and quarter sawn has the mix of the two. Plain sawn, this is more of your commodity cut. You get this cathedral growth rings. When you look at the end grain here, you've got the annual growth rings are going across the width of the board. So your movement now is going to be expansion and contraction across the width. This one you would have more likely to have cupping and gapping with a plain sawn board. But the rift and quarter sawn, that's why you can do this over radiant heat. You can do solid, you can do wide plank. Plus it looks really cool too. That's the other benefit.